Wow.
Yeah.
I feel like what
Nice.
both of you guys were saying reaches for the value that can be found in emotional strength. And what emotional strength does is it doesn't, or well, I'll start with what it doesn't do. What it doesn't do is check to see whether everybody is okay before you're willing to actually authentically express what you need to express.
Mm-hmm.
It's part of what it does is that it entrusts other people's mental and emotional states to them, because where I'm looking at them and trying to modify them and trying to fiddle with them and get them to, embody the responses that I want them to have, that doesn't empower them. It doesn't, it starts like, filtering your little fingers into their inner lives so that you're manipulating them, trying to get the responses that you need. But it happens a great deal because we don't have enough a solid enough sense of our own emotional value and the inclusion of a deeper understanding about how it is that we develop and where it is that we want to go starts to build stronger emotional reserves.
And somebody being emotional gives permission for other people's emotions to enter the sphere. Like if you hear, see, or feel an emotional outburst, that gives you permission to laugh or to cry or to yell in anger. It takes that first yes, that first raw crumbling of the wall that separates self and other, for that to really come down and for a group creation to actually form. It's the emotional body that connects us for truly shared thoughts and actually cloud computing power together. That's what allows us to be like a truly shared organism rather than different thought computers in parallel.
The first in-depth study that they've done on figuring out why things go viral and what the characteristics are, the first thing they did was break it down into emotions. So they categorized angry posts, sad posts, happy posts, non sequitur posts, etc., etc., etc. Sad posts were the least trendy. They actually had like a negative trend. Like you would lose popularity and standing if you were trying to spread something sad. And more provocatively, anger was the most viral emotion.
It's probably because it's the emotion that people are most afraid to show.
They outsource it
That's
to
just a
others,
guess.
yeah.
But yeah, it makes sense.
And
I would add too, like something I want to put in the space is like you were talking about emotional strength, and I think like this will coincide with some of the things you said, but emotional vulnerability is, I think, more accurate because like oftentimes cultures we value emotional strength being like you should be tough when in fact you want to cry, at least for men.
I wanna validate that a lot.
Yeah.
I want to say I think that emotional strength greatly means being able to experience and withstand any of the emotional states that we go through, and to be able to share the multifaceted, many-dimensional emotional space that everybody engages. 'Cause it's like if you're sad or if you've been through something dark,
Mm-hmm.
I need to be able to sit with you through that, because if I can't be with you, if I can't feel that emotional potency and all of that coming from you, then I can't act as a circuit that distributes the emotion through the network of everybody, because that's what the emotions serve to do. We don't have individuated emotions. Your emotions are all social. All of them connect you up to the larger world.
Well, look at the biological root of emotions. Emotions are not in the reptilian brain, at least not as we understand them today. The reptilian brain is like automatic, like I'm hungry, I'm feeling aggressive, I'm feeling horny, I need a lizard lady. That's the reptilian brain. But when you get into the mammalian brain, you get pair bonds, you get oxytocin, you get love, so that you can like gestate a complicated and like really vulnerable little kid into development. One that's warm-blooded, that has its own center, its own supply of warmth, its own supply of heat. basically you get the potential for an autonomous figure that can figure out its own individual life, rather than the reptilian system, which must be heated by the sun, which then cools. It's necessarily interdependent on its environment. But in order to allow for biological autonomy, you need community. You need to outsource that to a greater group, and that creates the need for emotions to have that communal warmth to allow like these vulnerable beings to take form. Mammal's strength is in the vulnerability.
Oh yeah, and where that vulnerability feeds into deeper connections that people are able to build with one another, because like if you have a happy emotion that I can connect to and we can be happy together for a while, actually we really can't get that deep into a connection because we can't share the multifaceted, many layered aspects of what it is that we are, right?
Mm-hmm.
But so what this leads to, I think, if we were to fully embody it and be able to approach all of the emotional states, deal in healthy ways with every one of our emotions, then what it ends up being is a much deeper and much stronger network where people aren't alone. It isn't that they don't feel alone sometimes, maybe, or you're welcome to go be alone if you feel like you need some space. But at the same time, to be able to communicate to your network that you need a little bit of space is incredibly healthy. And for people to understand you, for people to not be running away from all the different aspects of who you are. I don't know, I feel like there will come a time when I eventually elaborate on this, but I had an experience, a really jaw-droppingly crazy experience where I temporarily got a job at CU Denver's School of Medicine, and the first day of my job was a week before the movie theater shooting in Arvada, which happened a couple of blocks away from the school, and the school was part of a medical campus, and so all of the people that were there were, I found out about that shooting from nurses who had been working with the people who had been shot, and the guy who actually did the shooting was somebody that was on the floor of the building that I was on. His lab was about 100 feet away from where my lab was. And so I had this incredibly intense and potent experience. A lot of what it left me with, though, was this intuition that alienation is the thing that drives deep disconnects and ultimately emotional violence, where people respond in really insane ways, having lost emotional contact with the people that are around them. So really, we save lives by genuinely connecting to people and by opening up connections, especially if there are people in your life that are undergoing stress, that they don't have the resources to deal with, and maybe they don't have a lot of friends. Like the willingness to reach out to somebody who doesn't have a lot of friends and be a sounding board and let them say what they need to say. Man, like, you're doing a service to everybody if you do that.
Group hug.
And that is all we have time for this week. Thank you for joining us. Our guests today have been Duncan and Chris, with our host Joshua Morriston on the couch. I am your production manager, Shenanigans, and stay tuned for next week when we're talking about experimental psychology.